The Jaguar XJR-15 and the Nissan R390 are one of the world's rarest supercars that can take ages to find one example for sale. Yet both cars are related to each other and were under the supervision of Tom Walkinshaw Racing, or TWR for short. Both share similar styling cues and a rounded cockpit design and are purpose-built for racing. However, there are too many differences between both cars while they appear to look alike when they are side by side. If you were to ask me which one I prefer, the answer is the XJR-15. The car just has a beautiful design, a carbon tub, a big V12 engine, and a transaxle manual gearbox. The best part is that all of those features were derived from the XJR-9 race car to exist on the streets. Let's start by discussing the XJR-15 that came first. The story about the Jaguar XJR-15 is revolutionary and paved the way for future supercars to come. If you have never heard of the XJR-15, it is Jaguar's other 90s supercar that came before the XJ220. It's lesser known and much rarer, whereas the XJ220 is indeed rare too, with just 282 units built. The XJR-15 makes it more popular, and most car heads know the XJ220. The XJR-15 went into production from 1990 to 1992, and only 50 units were ever made. Some sources have claimed 53 were made, and nearly half of those are race cars. This supercar was built to be a race car for the road that can be bought. The XJR-15 set the benchmark for using carbon fiber design and reinforced with Kevlar materials. Nowadays, many modern sports cars use carbon fiber structures and other similar techniques. Nevertheless, the XJR-15 wasn't the first production car to use a carbon fiber chassis, as many sources say. It was the Ferrari F40 that came to be the first production car in the world from 1987, entirely made from carbon fiber. Since the 1980s, race cars like Formula 1 and Le Mans prototypes commonly used a carbon fiber design, and eventually road cars would use that material to save weight while maintaining strength to be driven to their limits. In 1988, Jaguar was involved in Group C racing with the XJR-9, giving the company its victory at the Le Mans 24-hour endurance race. After that win occurred, Tom Walkinshaw wanted to develop a hardcore street version of the XJR-9 prototype race car. He knew that he was going in the right direction with his plans since he worked with Jaguar to build and campaign prototype racers. TWR Jaguar Sports didn't do much to make the XJR-15 street legal. It was originally the R9R as a prototype before it came out as the XJR-15 in 1990. This car was intended to be a better alternative to the XJ220 that wasn't even out yet, and racing enthusiasts were eager to own a road-going racer. To adapt the car for road use, TWR reached a British designer, Peter Stevens, to design it, who famously co-designed the McLaren F1 and Lotus Esprit. He made several adaptations to make the cockpit wider and the roof taller to allow more space and headroom. At the same time, the car has a low ride height and a purposeful shape and used a modified carbon monocoque chassis of the XJR-9. The same goes for the softer suspension setup and racing brakes. It had a detuned 6-liter naturally aspirated V12 from the race car, producing 450 horsepower, 420 pound-feet of torque, made it to either a 6-speed racing manual or a regular 5-speed synchro-mash manual. The carbon fiber brought the car to an impressive 2,300 pounds. The XJR-15 can do 0 to 60 miles per hour in 3.9 seconds and reach a top speed of 191 miles per hour or 307 kilometers an hour. The XJR-15's chassis, bodywork, and interior are composed very much of a race car. The McLaren F1 that came out in 1992 used similar materials and a race-inspired interior. However, the overall proportions of the XJR-15 differed from the XJR-9, with the car being much longer, wider, and taller. The steering wheel, gauge clusters, seats with harnesses, carbon fiber, and a tight cockpit screams race car. The car was sold for about $1 million back when it was new with all of the features. Today, I bet you it's even more expensive for about a couple of million. But the XJR-15 wasn't a volume seller. Only 50 units were made and 27 of them were road cars, while the rest were for track use in a single make series called Jaguar Intercontinental Challenge. It supported the race series for the Formula 1 Championship at 3 amazing tracks: Monaco, Silverstone, and Spa in 1991. However, the XJR-15 only sold in tiny numbers, and the series that showcased it lasted just one season. As much as the XJR-15 made a great impact in the sports car world, it didn't get enough recognition and was primarily obscured. When the XJ220 followed by McLaren F1 released in 1992, they stole the spotlight. If anything, the XJR-15 simply looks stunning, and the Jag's V12 sound is a must listen. In 1997, when contracted by Nissan to build the R390 GT1, designed to race at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, it would include a similar basic shape and a rounded cockpit that of the XJR-15. Due to this, the R390 bears a resemblance to the Jag XJR-15, although the R390 was completely different inside out. The front end lights were shared over from the 300ZX Fairlady, and the back lights bear a resemblance to the GTR Skyline. Despite its unusual shape, you can still clearly identify that it's a Nissan. The R390 has a longer wheelbase and wider front and rear channels. Its chassis is lower and wider, but slightly shorter in length than the Jaguar, making the R390 larger overall, weighing around 2,400 pounds. Only one road legal version was built to meet the homologation requirements. 7 total were produced as race cars in 1997 and 1998. They were able to produce and test the car in a short amount of time, especially when Nismo supplied an existing engine they used from their Group C race cars. The engine tuned by TWR with Nismo was a 3.5-liter twin-turbo V8, making just 550 horsepower coupled to a 6-speed sequential manual gearbox. The race car made 100 more horsepower to about 650 horsepower with restrictions. Nissan recorded some impressive performance claims. The R390 would hit 0 to 60 miles per hour in 3.9 seconds and be said to hit a top speed of 220 miles per hour or 354 kilometers an hour. Even 35 years later, this makes it the fastest car that Nissan has ever produced and dubbed the ultimate Nissan at the time. The engine sounds spectacular in action and even when the car is standing still. Sadly, Nissan never followed up with selling it, and if they were to, the R390 supercar would have ended up costing $1 million, roughly as the Jag XJR-15. The very low ride height and no driving assistance will make it difficult to drive on public roads. Ian Cullen was liable for the car's design, whereas Tony Southgate, chief designer of TWR, was liable for the mechanical and aerodynamic design. If it hadn't been for the best racing games of all time, Gran Turismo, the R390 GT1 would have ended up one of the most obscure supercars ever. Just like the Jaguar, the car was built to be a right-hand drive machine since it's Japanese. Personally, I like the race car version because it looks more extreme than a road car with an aggressive race wing and cosmetic changes. And no, the R390 isn't the GT1 version of the XJR-15. As mentioned before, both cars are very much different but are familiar because both projects were under the influence of TWR and their composite specialist company Aztec. Both are beautifully expensive, rare, and great sounding sports cars from the 90s TWR has ever produced. What are your thoughts about these two legendary machines? I hope you guys really did sit back and relax and enjoy this video. If you did so, do not forget to hit the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel for some more quality content like this. And you are more than happy to give me any suggestions in the comments down below. Also, be sure to check out my merch store linked in the description down below that you can check out, buy, and support my merch store. Anyways, thanks for checking in, everyone. Peace out, stay safe, Chris the Radar, out.